So let's talk about rounding decimal numbers. There are two simple rules to follow when rounding decimal numbers, but now I'm going to sort of show you the rules and explain how I thought about it when I first learnt it, and it just sort of stuck with me ever since. So essentially what we've got to look at is what decimal place are we rounding to? We've got to look at the next decimal place after that and what the value of that decimal is. And if that decimal is less than 5, so for example 0, 1, 2, 3 or 4, we round it down. If the decimal is 5 or greater, we round it up. All right, and there was two sort of ways that I thought of this when I first learned it that really just stuck with me for life. And the first thing is we have this problem of like why 5? Okay, and I think of going between two destinations, and you're in a plane, okay, and you've got an emergency. All right, so here's airport A, here's airport B. Okay, now in an emergency, all right, let's just say there's a clear-cut difference. We've got this distance, straight line distance between them. Okay, there's this halfway point, all right, between them. That realistically, if you had an emergency and you had to get that plane down on the ground as quickly as possible, if you were anywhere before the halfway point on your journey, all right, the closest airport is clear-cut, airport A, you turn the plane around and you go back. Okay, if you're anywhere this side of the halfway point, you're clearly closer to B, you just keep going to airport B and that's where you get the plane down on. However, it raises this point of discussion halfway between. Now, halfway between is a half, or 0.5 is 5/10, okay, which is where this 5 is coming from. What do we do when we're literally bang on halfway? Well, the answer is pretty simple when you think about it, because you've got a velocity when you're in your plane, all right, and you're traveling towards the airport that you're trying to get to. Okay, if you're exactly halfway between the two airports, all right, it's going to take longer to physically turn the plane around and go back than it would just to continue on. So what we say is the moment you hit the halfway point, which in this case is 0.5, all right, we just continue on, which means that we round up. And that's sort of where the 0.5 comes from. Now, where this, I guess, sort of sometimes comes confusing to people is we don't just round to the nearest whole number all the time. In this case, we're rounding to 3 decimal places, which means the value we're actually looking at is the 4th decimal place. Okay, so what I kind of think about when I'm looking at this is going clear cut. Like if we look at our rules, we've got a 5 or larger number, so we should round up. But we are trying to represent it to the nearest, in this case, 10,000. 10,000? No, not 10,000. 10 hundreds, thousands. Yeah, the nearest thousandth. Okay, so what I do is I sort of ignore these first parts of the numbers, okay, because we know the 0.83 will stay here. But what we look at is we go these last 2 digits, and this is the other way that I always thought about it, and go, is 27 closer to 30 or to 20? And when you think about that, well, it's clearly closer to 30, all right? But we only need this to 3 decimal places, so we get rid of the 0, okay? And that's kind of the way that I think about rounding numbers. Yes, we have to look at where are we rounding to, all right? And the digits before where we're rounding to don't actually matter, okay? All that really matters is the 2 digits that you're rounding to, either side of it. All right, so in our second example here, we're rounding to 3 decimal places each time. So we are interested in these 2 digits, essentially. The rest of it's going to stay the same, this 3.88. And we've got to think about it. Is 35 closer to 40 or closer to 30? Well, it's dead bang on right in the middle of them two. So if it's dead bang on, you don't turn that airplane around, you just keep going. All right, so we go on to 40, but we've got to round to 3 decimal places, so we don't want to state the 4th decimal place, we leave it there, okay? So we leave it at the 0.884 or 884 thousandths. Okay. This one here, same deal, all right? The third decimal place is just here, all right? We are only interested in those two numbers. We don't care about this 5 here, all right? That's not the one that we're looking for, okay? We're just looking at this 71 here. Now, is 71 close to the 70 or to 80? Well, that one's nice and easy to think about. So this is 0.0370. But we only need to 3 decimal places, so we drop off the 0, and there's our answer. Okay, so we need to look at this part of the question. What decimal places are we thinking about? And we're only really looking at that decimal place and the next one after to determine exactly what the solution to it will be. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a strategy about my thinking when I first learnt about this and how to approach rounding decimal places.